ladies and gentlemen. It's time to say hi and welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY on British Radio Africa. It feels great to be back home as always. And Father God, we just want to give you praise. We want to magnify your name. Blessed be your holy name forever. We are grateful to you, Lord. In the name of Jesus, we've given thanks. As always, folks, here comes the tactic picking of the microphone, the golden voice of radio, the mastermind, doctor of law. Basi Yompu, Bedi Akuya Egweple, Sekoya Epelea, Dress it to Payege, Sepultura, Kwame or Treji. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. As for the giant, and now you know me, Garley. Welcome. And as we go home for this weekend, you just have to be mindful as to who you have conversation with. Some might take your wordings and twist it and interpret it very differently and make you look bad to others, when in reality you had good intentions. But people are wicked nowadays. You don't know what they're thinking about you. And that's one of the things I love about this platform. Outside of the professional setting of this platform, we don't talk about personal stuff. Talk about British Radio, talk about the guests, the featured guests, and talk about Liberia. But be careful. People are wicked out there. With that said, folks, welcome to the show. Well, folks, welcome to the show. Let us begin with our darling sister, the lovely Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts. Madam Roberts, welcome to the show.
Yes, good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to our audience. Thank you for coming to join us. We say happy Friday. Make work your wow. Welcome.
Okay. The Reverend Idatu's had it.
Greetings to all of our wonderful panelists and greetings to Liberians. It's such a pleasure. I wish you all have a great weekend and you had a wonderful Friday. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Fisk?
Yeah, thank you, Ashford, and welcome to the other panelists. I just also want to say welcome to our listeners and viewers out there. Liberians and other Africans, and we are hoping for yet another explosive edition of ASHFORD GARLEY Live with British Radio. Thank you.
Did you say explosive?
Explosive, yeah.
Okay.
Joel Dennis.
Buckle up.
Where the ball going again? Joel Dennis, are you there? Well, we're going to begin the show tonight for the first 15-20 minutes. We have a special guest. Minister.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, but you should have took my mic off. I'm a countryman.
But we can't see you, man. We can't see you.
But you can't see me tonight because I hear all the ladies let me ask for me, so I'm showing my face tonight.
Okay, go ahead. Welcome to the show.
Actually, I'm driving tonight, man. So I'm not gonna have my camera on. Okay. But yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, we have Minister Zokanga Jai. She launches her album tomorrow, and British Radio has taken up the time to give her the first 15-20 minutes to tell us about her project. So as soon as we get signal from Mrs. Jai and her lovely husband, we'll bring them on. In the meantime, I'd like to say hi to Fred J, Daniel, Kitty the Tobogi. This person calls himself or herself Victor Morgan, Cole Mulba. Idatus, give her the rundown of what is it that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Well, what's trending in the news is the fact that the government lost the $1 billion. Perpetrators have been set free. Alex Tyler resigned in his party. Um, this whole country Congo divide is still trending with the election of Mr. Cummings VP pick. And the Liberia is still very hot. It's very hot. There were some protesters who went to demonstrate in front of George Weah Jamaica's residence because a 53.3 carat diamond was found in Bapolu on Mount Fatu, Newmount or Diamond Creek by Mr. Mohammed Kamara. And that diamond worth $5 million, and it was turned over to the Assistant Minister of Lands and Mines, T.T. Swen. And according to the story, Mr. Kamara received $88,000 as property hush money, so that now the county is asking for the diamond to be returned, worth $5 million, and that's what's trending.
Thank you for that update. At this time, I think our guest is backstage, and let us go ahead and bring them all. Okay, Minister Zoe Kanka Jai, hello and welcome to Bridge Radio.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Okay, but let us begin the conversation like this. You are a minister of the gospel, and somebody who is so passionate when it comes to gospel music. We've listened to some of your works, and exceptionally fantastic. And I'm told tomorrow is a big day. Tell us about the launching tomorrow before we start to take a listen to some of your projects.
Sure. First, thanks for having me. Hi to everyone who's watching. The Mrs. Zoe Kanga Jai. I'm married. My husband is right here. He's also my manager.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having us.
Jerome Jai. I have 3 kids, and I also work as a nurse. Okay, the song coming up tomorrow is called Grateful. It's not an album, it's actually a song. I came up with a few songs in 2022, and this is just a continuation of that. And it's called Grateful. It's coming up tomorrow, the 3rd of June. And it's going to be on YouTube. You can find it on my YouTube channel. It's just Minister Zoe Kanga Jai. You can also find it on Facebook, Minister Zoe Kanga Jai. It's going to be on Instagram. Our name on Instagram is Ja Ponyo Music Ministry. Yeah, and that's the song that's coming up tomorrow.
So before we take a listen to this song, tell us about the inspiration behind the song Grateful.
Well, Grateful, this song came about when actually I was just driving one morning and just looking around and seeing this beautiful day and just looking around. I'm like, why don't we just appreciate the little things around us? And we are always looking for what's ahead of us. We're thinking about that big money. We're thinking about that big house and whatever it is. And we just forget to appreciate the little things that we have around us. And that goes for everybody, including myself, because I do that too. So that's how the song Grateful came about. Like in the book of Luke, if I'm not mistaken, it's Luke 16:10. It said that if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large things. So why can't we just appreciate the little things that we have now?
Man.
That's how this whole song came about. And I went to the studio and we recorded it. It's supposed to be launched a while back, but some things happened along the way that held me down for a while. But God being God, He picked me up again. And now we are ready to launch this song tomorrow.
So where is it going to be launched?
Well, the song is actually going to come out on YouTube, as I said. It's just we're not having a concert
Okay.
right now, but it's going to be on YouTube. It comes out tomorrow on YouTube, on Facebook, and Instagram.
The voice of Minister Zol Kankajai. She works as a professional nurse, and she's also the minister of the gospel and a very powerful singer. Let us take a listen at the song "Grateful." And folks, if you just joining us, this is Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. We come your way on Mondays.
What the Lord has done for you. All you do is money, complain every day, just wind up. You better wake up, start counting your blessings every day. Yeah. Now bet yo, be a go baba yo. Praise God. Come let's celebrate. Praise Jehovah.
Wow, what a beautiful song. I heard you say something in your native tongue. You care to share with us what were you saying?
Sure. It's in Bassa. I'm a Bassa woman. And most of my songs, I do both English and Bassa. Actually, it's just saying the same thing in English. Grateful. Let's praise him. It's a be grateful. It's praise God. Nia bang. Give him thanks. And that's what it's saying. Be grateful. Nia bang. Praise God. Let us celebrate him for who he is and what he has done.
Now, how do you balance your schedule as a full-time nurse and a minister, a producer, a songwriter, a singer, a mother, and a wife? How do you balance your schedule?
Well, for me, in everything, I put God first, and I ask Him for strength. And then the things that I do, the things that I love, and I think that makes it very easy for me. I love being a nurse, and I love being a musician. So they all just work together. I also love being a wife and a mother.
You have to.
I have to, huh? So yeah, that's how it works for me. You have to love these things for you to be able to do it. If you don't have any love for it, it's just gonna be so difficult. So I love them all.
Okay.
Yeah, Ashford, let me just come in quick.
Yes, sir.
The she has a ministry, right? And the ministry Jah Poyam, which
Japoya.
ambassador, Jah Poyam mean believer, right? Last year she wrote 3 songs, and we did launch it in the Republic of Liberia. I think it was in January 2022. We launched it in Liberia, and it was very, very, very successful. So as she said, this song is a single song, and basically it will be uploaded to all of the major platforms, YouTube, Instagram, and her Facebook page. So we just urging everyone to basically this song is free. Go to YouTube, listen to it, but we want you to, while you listen, for you to subscribe to a YouTube page or YouTube channel. So that's the point I really wanted to make. And also, we are very grateful for you guys having us here to actually promote her. I mean, basically, she's doing it because she's very passionate. She's not doing it for the money, but just to win soul for Christ. So we are very grateful and happy that you guys have us on the platform here tonight.
Well, I have Dr. Fisk here. He's one of the panelists here on the show. I also have Reverend Idatus. I'm pretty sure he heard about your wife before. And then I have the lovely Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, who is in fact my co-host. Dr. Fisk, this is our sister, the minister Zoe Kanka Joye, with her new effort. Grateful.
Yeah, I mean, the music is nice, and I want to congratulate her.
Thank you.
And I'm just hoping that people will listen to it and it becomes adopted across Liberia in the churches and stuff like that. We have a lot of churches, and I don't know how she intends to do stuff like that, because that will be taking it one step further. Because yeah, YouTube is international, but domestically, if we can get a lot of people singing those hymns in the churches, that'll be a very nice thing. I don't know what you think.
Well, Reverend Island, Mr. Jai goes back with us many, many decades ago at Zion Community College. I'm pretty sure you remember him.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
after today,
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah.
bring me in so we can talk some politics, my man.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can just stay on the show and watch. You can go one side. You already know that.
No, you know I'll
But
have to come prepared to take notes.
okay. Well, I'm certainly congratulations. I'm very impressed by the song. The fact that you're calling, the world to the attention that life has its own challenges. When you learn to be
Yeah.
grateful,
Yep.
things that can change your altitude, which is precisely the gospel message. Getting us to understand who we are in Christ, living by the very grace of God, and the need to be grateful irrespective of what is happening. Your condition is always better than somebody else's
So true.
condition, and just having to be able to recognize God for what He's already doing, as opposed to the mansions and cars and the luxurious lifestyle
Amen.
we want.
Amen.
And the Bible says, "First seek ye the kingdom of God, and all other things will be added unto you." Matthew 6:33. So I'm sincerely grateful for that. For people who don't want to come to church, they still get to hear the gospel through music
Yeah.
that's inspiring and so touching. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts.
Yes, I want to say welcome to Bridge Radio Africa,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
and
you.
Mrs. And yes, this song has a great catch. The words are also inspirational, and we all know that we have a reason to be grateful. So
Yeah.
we pray your success as you said, this is not your first rodeo. So as you guys um, what's the word? Lunch tomorrow. We pray that everything goes well. But
Thank
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 you.
you
you.
for
Amen.
me. I am grateful. I'm grateful to be
Amen.
sitting here in the beauty of the
Yep. Yep.
universe. I don't have to turn on any current, and
Yep.
God you know in His infinite wisdom gave us daylight and night and nightlight for a reason. So thank you all. And I am not Bassa, but I have Bassa lineage, as in my other half is, and so I know what Nyamli Konya means. And thank God
Amen.
for the for giving Him praise in
And
all that you do.
Well,
yeah.
and
Thank you.
we're also told that Minister Jai, produced several other songs that caused a very serious sensation, not only in the diaspora but in other parts of the world. So let us take a listen.
Okay.
I kept hearing Japoya, Japoya, and Mr. Manager, a prior husband, and he said, "You are not going to hire any other manager. I'm going to be the guy by the side."
I'm telling
You
you.
you're
I'm
right on
telling you.
point. Tell us about Japoya.
Japonya means believers, as he said. Believers, a Zambasa as well. As the song is just saying, are you ready for the second coming, or are you ready to receive Christ? When he comes, what would you do? Will you be ready? We want to celebrate. That's what the song is talking about. Amu Kedem Po. If you hear Amu Kedem Po, it says we will celebrate when Christ comes.
And
Yeah.
well, folks, if you
I just have a quick question for you.
uh-huh.
So your CDs are already made to be sold?
Yes, the first 3 songs that I made, we do have CDs for it, yes, and we did sell them. We sold a lot of them. Yeah, but Grateful is just the new one coming up.
How much do they sell for?
$10.
$10. Bridge Radio will buy the first 10.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. But
Thank you.
Reverend, you can find those songs on YouTube. You just go, you type in Minister Zoe Kanga Jai, and they are all on
Okay.
YouTube.
You know,
Yeah,
finding,
they're on
finding the
YouTube.
songs on YouTube is one thing, but we want to
You gotta
patronize that.
support.
Yeah, of course. Of course,
Support,
I just want to let
you
you
know.
know. Yeah.
So the first 10 copies,
Okay.
according to our very
Yeah, Bridge Radio will pay for them.
our
Thank
very
you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
our
you.
very successful Reverend, who is a silent millionaire, I just said that Breach will pick up the first 10 copies. Let us take a listen to the last one before we get your partner statement.
Didn't know your mind till I got right. Now I believe you're the mighty warrior, strong and better. You'll never lose a fight. Bright and morning star, who is like unto thee? Nobody like you. 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 Oh yes, my Jesus, you reign. Yeah. You reign. Oh, you reign. That will never change. That will never change.
Very professionally produced. Tell us about the studio work. I mean, you guys put in a lot of work in this.
Yeah, we've really been putting a whole lot of work into it, including producing the song and then doing the video. The song, all of my songs actually, they were produced by Just Prince. He does all my songs, and that video was done by
Ray Lombardi.
Ray Lombardi. He's very good.
Yeah, he's a videographer in Leon, not too far from us.
Yeah, he's not too far from us.
Ashford, can you bring Joel on? He's backstage.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Minister.
Yeah. As I said, the songs were all produced by Just Prince. He's a Liberian producer. He's in North Carolina, and he does a very good job. The video, Jesus You Reign, that was done by Ray Lombardi.
Office in Leon.
Yeah. But Grateful
thank you for telling me that Just Prince in North Carolina. I thought you were in Philadelphia. Yeah, he's very well known.
Yeah,
he moves.
He
He
moved.
moved
He's
a
in
couple
North
years.
Carolina. He's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Madam Minister, I want to thank you. Mr. Jai, want to thank you also for the job well done. We'll continue to spread the word and tell folks about your productivity. I'm so proud of you as our Liberian sister who is so passionate about the things of music. And the guy continue to strengthen you as you mold the minds of our brothers and sisters who are interested in becoming musicians as well. So thank you so much. Your final statement, you and your husband, just before we take leave.
Well, I just want to thank you again for having us here today. We really appreciate that. And I want to say thanks to everyone who's viewing right now. Again, I just want to remind everybody about the song coming out tomorrow, June 3rd. Tomorrow is going to be on YouTube. Minister Zoe Kanga Jai. Please do not forget to subscribe, please. And it's also going to be on Facebook, Minister Zoe Kanga Jai. You can go there. You can follow me as well. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ashford. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
So
coming.
Ashford.
Okay.
Ashford.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So why you didn't get my opinion on the people now? What happened? What you put in muzzle on me or what?
Sorry, Chief. Sorry. You
But
were
I have one thing to say though.
go ahead.
You know, that's how I know Idatus is a UP supporter of Joseph Boyga.
Oh Lord.
Because in this day and time, who
Yeah.
buys CDs?
And that-
Who buys CDs? Where
oh.
do they even sell CDs at? Eh?
No,
Who
you
who
didn't.
buys CDs? Maybe the net.
So,
I'm surprised he even said cassette tape.
Well,
communication is very
thank you.
important. People sell CDs for so we are
You see,
speaking to an audience to promote Liberians. You know, thank God you are very advanced, which is a
Mhm.
Liberian artist. The
you see
vast
why
Liberians
we
are
don't want
going
to
to
bring
support them.
boycott, make boycott president because he bring cassette tape
I know.
and
Well,
typewriters.
folks, again, let's get straight into it. At this time, we'd like to say welcome to J. Rennie Dapple. Dapple
Oh Lord.
uh, is in the house tonight, as always. And we ask that we all make the show a very good one tonight. But Dapple, just before you come in, I mean, did you take money from Stanton Waters? If so, have you paid him back?
I mean, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why you asking that question, but I mean, if you mind ask, I mean, if you don't mind me asking you what, why you asking me that question? You know,
Man,
we are
I tell you, man,
Liberians.
man, just breaking the ice, man. Come on, because you always on Stanton, my man. I mean, I mean, every day you on Stanton with a show on here. You know, so I'm asking,
Yeah, I
because
mean, I mean, you just speak to people of God, and for me, I don't believe in Liberian churches because they are not honest. And you know, when I was growing up in the early '80s, we were taught how to really represent the Bible by living the life it is. They used to describe it as an exemplified life. I don't see it in the contemporary post-war Liberia we see. So when you see me coming after not just Stanton Witherspoon, but coming after any Liberian who professes to be a Christian, but at the same time want to be in politics, and they are not living up to the biblical standard of politics into the contemporary society we live in. My role is to expose those deviations in the society. And from the get-go, I often used to ask Mr. Witherspoon that he said he had a company he was running, and I was interested in a financial report. I was interested in looking at a website to determine whether his company was legit or not. But as you know, many of our brothers and sisters, they are being carried away by people who wear these flashes things and come out. And today we see the reality. And you know, it is not the full extent of foreclosure yet, but I think they're getting to understand that what JRND stands for is nothing but exposing the truth because that's who I am. And you know, the Bible says, "Live your life before men that he or she shall see your ways and
okay,
glorify your Father in heaven." And, you know, so I'm just bringing those things, or just to remind people that when you are fake, we make sure that we allow the people to see you that you are not real, and that's one of the characteristics that I have. But in answering your question, I think no, I haven't. Still not myself, we are not close. I mean, I don't know who he is and stuff like that. But I'm
okay,
just he's just in the art of the Liberian people, and I want to make sure that the people understand who he is.
okay. Well, the screen is kind of frozen. I don't know if you can still get, but I want to go to Dr. James
Can
T.
hear you.
Fisk. Okay, Dr. Fisk. Let us begin this conversation, not in any particular order, but should the country conquer divide have any place in our Bali politics? I want to begin with you tonight.
The thing is there a is there a Congo country divide in the first place? Um, People need to understand that Liberians have lived together for over 200 years since the arrival of the first settlers. And the settlers in question actually came from Africa. And a number of settlers were actually um, captured off the Pepper Coast, which is currently Liberia. So after 200 years of existence, we need to understand our own culture. In Liberia, we identify ourselves along tribal lines. I'm a crew man, I'm a vibe man, the rest of it. Even though we intermarry, we still have a patrilineal system of inheritance and identity. And the last time I talked about this issue, I did mention that at the time, back in the 1800s, you had about 20,000 people settling in Liberia when other each tribe was at least about 40,000. So over 200 years, every group of Liberians have grown. So I've said, okay, those who came in 1820 uh, did not allow themselves to be infused into the system. But we've talked about reconciliation so many times in Liberia. But that is an issue that has not been reconciled. Instead of always going into history, which is not helping us because we've moved beyond so many generations. Questions we Africans need to do is to always ask, what is the solution? And I've said the solution for that is to make sure that every Liberian is on an even playing field. To do that, make everybody a tribe. So that you have the Congo tribe, people of the Congo tribe. Okay, because if I'm born in Liberia, I'm a native born of Liberia. So I don't know why people don't understand this thing. Okay, so even though I'm a native born of Liberia, then people ask me, but what tribe? Because that's the next question that comes. What tribe you belong to? Even though I'm from the Congo lineage, you want me to say Avai? No. Then I tell you, oh, I'm from the Congo tribe. Then there's no Congo versus native or Congo versus this because now everybody become a tribe. For me, that's the solution. And I don't think if you look at Liberia for what it is and the fact that people are being born in the country for over 200 years, you can still look at another Liberian and abrogate it to yourself to say this other person, I'm more indigenous than them because of my name. That's the same problem we have with the people in the past. We say people were discriminating because of name. Now it has come back again. We need to get rid of all of that stuff and making everybody a tribe in Liberia.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, what are your thoughts? Please unmute your microphone.
I'm sorry about that. No, I said, as stated by Dr. Fitz, Liberia celebrated 200 years since we left, or since the freed slaves came, and to continue to perpetuate the divide, I think is wrong. We are mostly all born there now. Those people that came, while it is true they have their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, but when do we pull ourselves from saying that those people are Congo, as in they're not part of us? So I do agree that we should consider that, either saying a tribe or just finding another way to identify them. But we cannot continue trying to divide each other because my mother, or father, child was, that kind of stuff. That it's too far back, and it shouldn't be used as a deterrent as being part of the native land.
The Reverend, not the Reverend, J. Renan Diebold, do you agree that we shouldn't continue to talk about the country Congo divide or to have any place into our body politics? And if so, it starts with us in the fourth estate, the media, because the people listen to us. And according to Dr. Fist and Mrs. Roberts, something that is aged over 200 years ago, there are people in Liberia, even though they see themselves or people see them as Congo, but they see themselves as indigenous as well. And I agree that they should be called indigenous because they were born and raised in Liberia. But yet people continue to preach this divide. Should there be a place in this, body politics of Liberia, Mr. Dapo?
Yeah, I tend to take a different approach to the answer Dr. Rockefeller or Dr. Popo presented. When you look at the historical timeline of Liberia prior to the settler coming in, there wasn't anything such as American Liberians. There wasn't anything such as the interior and the city. There wasn't anything such as the elite class. When the American Liberian arrived, they decided to establish the system of labeling people.
To a point, you just said there was no such thing as American Liberian, but then you're going back to American Liberian.
Is there any? I mean, I don't know, but I just got interrupted. Are you asking me a question or are you quoting what I just said?
You in your statement you said in the beginning there were no American Liberians, there were no city country, there were no elite. Then you said, but then when the American Liberians came,
So how do you
that's a
interpret that?
contradiction.
So how do you interpret that? When I said in the beginning there wasn't a miracle Liberian, on the principle of which I was discussing that, what I was trying to say is prehistoric arrival of the the American Liberians. There were no such thing prior to that time, prior to 1822, prior to the first ship that arrived. There were no such thing as African American. They were all indigenous people from around the continent of Africa. And prior to that time, there were no such thing as American Liberian. There were no such thing as interior. There were no such thing as I don't know your name, so I will call you John Wizard. So I tried to establish that, and that's why I said based on the timeline. Now, upon the arrival of the American Liberians, when they came, the existing culture that was there, they decided to alter that. They decided to redraw the entire demographic and created a class system. They were the one who named themselves Congo people. They were the one who decided to establish different communities across our country. So why should we forget about that? We should not forget about that. But what I think we need to do is for us to be able to catalog those things as part of our past history and begin to teach our kids about prehistoric existence of Liberia, the coming of American Liberian, the integration of American Liberian class system into the indigenous system, and then the students who will become future leaders will get to understand how things went. ASHFORD GARLEY, there were people who came from the native land or the interior part of the country that name were changed because the American Liberian could not cope with the name. But if you look at it technically, they were actually trying to apply what happened to them here, where their name were changed. People name that were changed in this country were basically owned by the slave master. And we saw similar thing happening. So I think the lack of education, the lack of teaching our past to the current generation is the is the repeat of what is happening today. You see that.
Ash, Ashford,
Before I leave lastly, before I stop lastly, you listen to Beneda Ure in modern days and you listen to Mr. Cummings in modern day. When they say we want our country back, isn't that division? Who are they asking the country back from? I rest my
Ashford,
case on that for now.
Ashford, can I provide some education to
Get,
Mr.
come
Randy
in.
Dapo
Come
before
in,
we
then we'll
move
go to
forward? Okay.
Joel
Well,
Dennis.
when you say education, then I will challenge you in there because if you say clarity, I will agree with you. But when you say education, I differ with you.
But let me speak and then you understand why it's education.
Well, I already have an engineering degree and I'm also an educated man too. So if we talk about that, I don't know. But yeah, I think it will be better to say, you know what, let me provide clarity
You can
rather than
educate me, you can, and because of that, you can educate me when it
I
comes
just
to
letting you know.
engineering.
I just letting you know
No,
that
when it comes to engineering, you can educate me and I will
yeah,
accept
but
the
when
education
it comes
because
to
that's not
social,
my area.
when it comes to social, I can
Yeah,
also provide education to the people here too.
wait,
But Rennie,
wait,
do
let
you
me
agree
provide
that
the
something that you
education.
don't know anything about, you can be educated on that if you don't know
Educate
anything about
about.
it?
No,
So I
but
want to
but
educate
not
you.
on the platform. Something that you don't know on the platform, you should
Okay,
provide
please
clarity
allow him to speak,
because
Rennie.
everyone here has a background of expertise. All
Okay,
right,
Rennie.
but being an engineer doesn't mean that everything that I did was just engineering related. No, I took more courses
He
in African
just told you
American studies,
you can
including
educate
Liberian
him when it
studies.
comes to engineering.
So
So
no, I don't want
okay,
you to limit. I don't want you to limit
okay,
I don't
please
want you
hold
to limit me
okay,
to that extent.
hold your thought.
Because
Let he
what
come
I
in,
think
please.
the brother should be saying is, let me provide clarity on Randy stuff.
No, I
That's how
provided education. Clarity is
well,
different
anyway, you
from
want to interpret it
education.
up to you.
Okay,
Anyway,
Rennie.
but
Okay,
if you
fine.
provide
Please allow him
education,
to
it's
speak,
not been
Rennie.
provided to me. It's
Okay,
Rennie,
been provided to people out
Rennie,
here.
please
can I
allow him to
speak?
speak. Go
Go
ahead,
out there.
Dr.
Can I
Fitz.
speak?
Go
Okay.
ahead, Fitz.
So, when it comes to this issue, a lot of people make a lot of mistake. And I just trying to correct the mistake. It's up to you to take it or to leave it. If you study American history, they got something called the Emancipation Declaration. that was declared by
That
Abraham
was
Lincoln.
1865. That was 1865.
No, not. Hey, can you?
Please stop
You are
interrupting.
interrupting me.
But Ashford, let me ask you the question here. First,
Randy,
Can you
Randy,
are interrupting me?
Ashford, let me ask
Randy,
you the question here.
Randy,
Ashford,
Problem,
please allow the man to
The
speak.
man comes and show
Ashford,
his dominance. He
let me say
doesn't
something here.
listen.
Ashford,
Randy,
let me say something. Ashford,
Randy, listen now.
no,
Randy,
Ashford, I
please
want to
allow.
say something. Look,
Randy,
Ashford,
I
let me
know
just
you
say
will say
something.
something, but please
Give me
allow the
1
man to
minute,
speak.
please. Just give me 1 minute, Ashford. All right, I rest my case.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy, you
Okay.
have to wait your turn.
The
I mean,
emancipation.
No, the fire is
The
when I was speaking,
Randy,
Sis Letty interrupted me. You said nothing. When I was still
okay, I
speaking,
do apologize for that.
yeah, because
I just
you
wanted
triggered
to
that. You
interject, but
triggered that. You
you're
triggered
not
that,
even
and it
letting
rolled
him
over
go
to Dr.
forward
James.
to know what he's going to
When Dr.
say, though.
Rockefeller spoke, nobody said anything. But the moment I start speaking, then
Who
people start to
Dr.
go. So what's the
Rockefeller
ground
yet?
rule?
that's
What's the ground rule?
Dr.
I have not
Fisk?
spoken yet as Dr. Fisk.
Oh,
We're two
thank
doctors
you.
here, yeah.
Thank
hold
you.
on, gentlemen and lady. Okay,
No.
I'm
But
sorry.
Dr. Rockefeller, wasn't you the one that the question of whether we should retain or we should move on beyond the American continent?
No, I haven't spoken yet since I
Okay,
logged
all right.
on.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
somebody else. Maybe
It
it was
was
Dr.
It
somebody
was
else.
Fisk,
me.
please continue.
Dr.
Let's make
Fisk.
progress. Dr.
Okay.
Fisk, please continue.
So the Emancipation Declaration of 1861 declared people of color citizens of these United States. And the basis of the Civil War of America was because certain states wanted to be slave states and certain states wanted to be free states. So prior to the Emancipation Declaration, no black person was a citizen of the United States until after the Emancipation Declaration. What I'm trying to say is this. When those people came in 1820, they were not American Liberians. That's why people continue to make the mistake. Okay, those people were repatriated Africans. That's number one. So as far as historical term is concerned, it doesn't apply. But as far as contemporary term is concerned, there does exist an American Liberian, but it's in contemporary parlance. What do I mean by that? As a Liberian, if I come to the United States and I naturalize and I become a citizen of Liberia, instead of saying American Liberian, it makes sense to say American Liberian. So in other words, you can have Bassa people who are American Liberian, Pele, Kran, and every other dialect of Liberia. Okay, and it's because of one of these things that we miss. That is why we seem to be so confused about our own history. So don't go about henceforth after today referring to the people who came in 1847 as American Liberians. No, they were not. They were repatriated Africans. I just want to provide that
Thank you.
education.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Ashford, so I have to respond to that, right?
No,
Because
you will respond when
no,
it
Ashford,
was
no. Ashford,
Randy,
because he
Randy,
called me out directly, Ashford. He
Randy,
called me out
Randy,
directly, and I have to.
Randy. When your term reaches,
Why is it that when I come on the show here,
Randy,
I become the person of interest? I mean, you
Randy,
called me today and said, "Hey, I knew you on my show." The guy, I
Randy.
mean, Dr. Fish looked at me and said, can I provide education to Randy?" You
Okay,
already said it, but you want
Randy.
to hold me now.
When your turn comes, you explain. Joel Dennis, please.
Can you hear me? Can
Go
you
ahead,
guys hear
Joel
me?
Dennis.
Okay. I think first of all, you know, this whole Congo country divide, there wouldn't be any Congo people if the so-called native people wasn't selling their own brothers and sisters in the first place. So the return of the so-called Congo people is probably God's punishing them for selling their own brothers. And as a matter of fact, we still have those same conditions today in Liberia and elsewhere in Africa. That if you brought a slave ship to Africa, you might even have 75% of Liberia jumping on that ship, because the leaders there today are no different from the leaders back in this days where he was talking about. The economic oppressive conditions in Africa is leading to the same conditions where you got people walking from Nigeria across the Sahara Desert, swimming across the Mediterranean to get into Spain.
Yep.
So that
Yep.
there is no, so those conditions are there. And as a matter of fact, I will even go further and say, if today you told George Weah, and I'm being facetious, listen, America needs some slaves, I'm pretty sure he'll be willing to send all of District 14 and all the opposition to America. So those same conditions still exist today. So if there would not be any Congo people, no Congo people, I tell you, if they weren't selling their own brothers and sisters. And as far as he's saying there was no elite group in 1820, Sure, there was. That land that we're talking about today,
There
we
were
call in
kings
Liberia.
and queens.
You had you had the British colony in Sierra Leone. You had the French colony in Guinea and Ivory Coast. So who were they colonizing? And the only reason that land today is called Liberia is because the British never claimed it, and the French never claimed it. So you have what did you have in that land? What did you have in that land? There were
Thank you,
people
Jarrell.
there. Okay, I'll leave it
Thank
at
you.
that.
Idatu Sade.
You know, I actually asked the question, why is the country Congo thing prevalent in our society? And what I heard was somebody is responsible for the sense of elitism, and it was brought by people who came from America. I thought I would have heard a response of, in the context of reconciliation, that indeed such a divide has no place in our political or in our body politics. Unfortunately, we'll have this propaganda intended to further divide us because people see consistency. It is not healthy for our body politics. I'm a firm believer in having a very unique section of our diversity in this nation called Liberia, indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. But as long as, politicians continue to use this as a way to divide, as well as those in the estate or people who sit on public platforms as these and further propagate, blaming one another for what is happening, it is wrong, it shouldn't be tolerated. And as far as reconciliation is concerned, let's look at the history of how it all begins. Where do we start? Do we start 7? Do we start when our brothers and sisters were sold into slavery or captured into slavery? Do we start at the 1989 Civil War, or do we go back to 1980 when the men were executed on the pole? So this idea of consistently regurgitating politics that divide us needs to be stopped, whether or not you support a particular leader in this dispensation. And the fact that it was mentioned, folks don't go to church because people are very ungodly pastors behind the pulpit. Then I was wondering whether or not we're talking about President George Weah. If we truly want to be honest about ourselves and the desecration of the pulpit, a president who speaks from who is quite frankly stated that he's a pastor and he has, but is consistently desecrating the pulpit. So are we truly being honest with ourselves and we say we don't go to church because pastors being ungodly and fake, while at the same time we have a president who is, desecrating the pulpit in many ways, shape, or form, presiding over government with extra judicial killing, not to mention rapid corruption, tribalism,
Thank you.
self-Christianization of the government, among several other things. So let's be honest about our body politics and speak truth to power from that place of honesty that we want to profess. Thank you.
Dr. Rockefeller Cooper.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's great seeing you all here once again. Mr. Dapo, I know this is the first time that we were meeting on this platform. So,
Good evening.
yes. So, actually, here's the thing. Okay, I look at this whole, Congo native divide from a different angle, and as a descendant of free American slaves that were repatriated to Liberia, as Dr. Fisk had mentioned earlier, which is correct, by the way. You see, the mentality that was brought by those individuals trickled down. And that mentality has to do with what was being portrayed on the plantations. If you fast forward, we had this thing where with the natives will come and live with those referred to as Congos, and you will have like your house boy, your house girl, your cook and whatnot. Okay. That's the same mentality. That was what they grew up in. Because remember, a lot of those people that were repatriated were not first time, they were not like the first generation, those that were brought from Africa and then just turned around, put back on a ship and sent to Africa to be repatriated. Some of them they were born on the plantation. Some had earned their stripes where they work in the house. They're the ones that we refer to as the house nigger. So you had the house nigger and then you had the ordinary nigger that was out in the cotton field. So the Congo man, growing his sugar cane as well, he had the natives, okay, those that would be in the house that would serve, and also those that would be working the yard. And then, of course, he had a divide where some felt that they were more elite than others. And this is something that just trickled down. And of course, we saw what happened in 1980. And from there on, I mean, this has been something that has left a grave impression on our society. So the thing here is, or what we need to ask ourselves is, how do we piggyback? How do we correct the mistakes? What is the true reality here? Because when you look at it, like with people changing their names as well, because simply because the native name was too hard to pronounce, those people also became Congos by extension. Okay, because they were raised that way, and so that's how they
Thank
they
you.
raise their children as well. So I think it's something that we need to look at as a society and see how best we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. What at this time, I will give each of you 1 minute to wrap up this, and then we'll take a few calls, and then move to our next segment. And I'll begin with Dr. Face. 1 minute, please.
Oh, you don't want to go to Mr. Dapo? He said he wanted to respond.
Wait, was he the first? I think you. Okay, I'm sorry. Dapo, would you
Yeah.
please come in?
Yeah, at least everybody spoke and nobody said anything. So that shows that there is some biasness on the platform, but those who are biased, the audience out there will know. Let me say thanks to Dr. Cooper. I think he may have said something that I started with. The issue of American or Liberian, or they being called slave, I call it Liberians, or let's say American Liberians who left the United States. It is not a word that I created. It's carved into history. When everyone else was speaking, I'm looking at what I just read here. It is mentioned on any historical platform and in any other history book that after slavery came to an end, there were few free American African who returned back home. I want that to be established. It was not something that anybody made up yet. It is in history. And those who are watching, you can just go and Google the end of slavery. And those who repatriated themselves or by way of the ACS, they were called ex-slave when they arrived in Africa. They were also considered to be ex-slaves. Before leaving from here, they were called African American. But when they got to Liberia, they decided to call themselves American Liberian. They established that. Now, back to your question, Ashford. When you say, do we still see the Congo divide? I would say yes. They fight that upon generation to generation. Those who left this country, knowing fully well what has happened to them, going back to Liberia and establishing class system, it was meant actually to have a revenge on those who they met on the ground to maintain or impose control upon them. And let me say this, I'm not on the platform to defend any political party or any government. What I'm here to do is to speak the truth. So when I see Reverend Ade talking about President, we are going to church, you don't find me in President, we are church. When he on the pulpit, you don't find me there. I'm only here to support what is right in the country and what is wrong. But now that he said that, he supports Joseph Boyka. This is a man who is sick and have a pacemaker. He, as a pastor, is not being honest to encourage Mr. Boyka, to provide his medical report to determine his physical capacity to adequately perform the office that he's seeking for. He would never ask the preferred candidate that question. So if he want to get into politics rather than discussing the issue at hand here, then whenever he speak and he try to draw me in, I'm not going to cover my face like the way
Thank you.
he is. I'm going to call him out. So
Thank you.
I will rest down there and leave it as it is.
Thank you. I'd like to speak a little over.
Yeah, because
yeah,
number one, yeah,
you
you
have
like
to
to do that
address.
because number one, Dr. Faith responded to me and I want to respond back.
That's
He
right.
said
That's what I
no,
just said.
and
That's what I
then
just
he
said.
gave 1 minute, so it be 1 minute plus the time I take to respond
Exactly.
to
And
Dr.
you
Faith.
did just that, right?
Yeah, so you don't have
It
to
was fair
justify that.
enough, correct?
You don't have to justify that. By assumption, we all know.
That's really good. Go ahead, Dr. Face.
Yeah, so I come back again. I was just talking to somebody and I mentioned, the Congo tribe, and then they said, well, if you go back in the history book, they're only $16. You know why Western nations are advanced and African countries are backwards and continue to remain backwards? It's because Western nations, whenever someone come out with a finding, people go and research and come up with new findings. That's why these nations are advanced, because they keep improving on the ideas. We African, we say, well, that what they said 1900, so it's just going to be like that until
The
Jesus
thing is
Christ come,
written in
which
the
is
American book done by
There you go,
1900.
interrupting the man, Brandy. He just talked about somebody
No, I
interrupting
just
you,
gave
bro.
you a part of medicine. Now remember, he gave me a part of medicine from the beginning,
We
so
can't
that's
do
it
this,
there.
man. Come on, brother. We can't do this.
No, but he did that first. He
Okay,
did that.
please.
I'm
Can
just
we
trying to
refrain
correct
from
you that.
doing that? Can we refrain from doing that,
All
please?
right, all right. Let's go
Thank you.
ahead. Let's go ahead. I hope you give me a benefit of that because
okay. So if you want to be intelligent about the discussion, ask yourself, were black people citizens of America before the Emancipation
it's not a
Declaration?
question for me.
Well, no, can you stop interrupting me?
Oh, okay. Because you said if you want to, but I
Okay.
think it's going to be directly.
If you want to be intelligent about the discussion, I'm speaking to the audience. Okay, go and ask yourself, those listening to me right now, those watching, ask yourself why there was a civil war in America. The civil war was because blacks were not recognized as citizens in this country. They were considered like three-fourths of a citizen or something like that.
3/5.
Okay, three-fifths or whatever. Okay, black people became citizens of this country after the Emancipation Declaration of 1861. Okay, so it's up to you. You want to go and continue to say America, Liberia, even though I've just provided you with the education that no, historically that word don't make any sense. You can continue to stick to it. Okay, now let's, before I wrap up and go to work. Okay, these people came 1820, 200 years ago. I'm born. Mr. Dapo want to convince, and me, I'm from the Congo tribe. You want to convince yourself that you're more Liberian than me? That's bull crap. You would never be more indigenous than me. You'll never be more native than me. You'll never be more Liberian than me. Don't even think about it for 1 second. The idea of the discrimination came from the people who organized this whole expedition to Liberia, the Quakers. They had a mentality that Africa was a place of savages. So even the first constitution of the settlers mentioned that they came to civilize the savages of Africa. Is that how I think? Your people killed during the war. Are you saying that people should hold you responsible for what happened in the war? That's bull crap. So it's so silly and stupid that people use 1820 to want to discriminate against people like me. It's not going to work. Never ever. I consider myself from the Congo tribe and a native born of Liberia. That's how we should be speaking. Instead of always revisiting the history, which is 200 years old and has done nothing for contemporary Liberia. That's how we say, that's why we want to wrap up on and go to work. It was a pleasure
No, no, before you,
talking to
no, no, no,
everyone.
no. Face,
Yeah.
you can't do the face. Before you go to work, I will allow Randy 30 seconds to respond at
Yeah,
least.
let him respond and then I go to work. That's fine.
Okay, go ahead, Randy.
I think Dr. Fishton, by him just trying to fire up and leave is going to cut it. No, he's not going to cut it. First of all,
Mm?
he misrepresent the information that have been provided to the Liberian people here. According to history, in 1868, 3 years after the abolishment of slavery, the 14th Amendment served as the revolutionary purpose to define African American as citizens of the law. So I don't know where he getting that information from. And after that, it was when many people decided to migrate, or prior to that, they decided to migrate to go to Africa. What I'm trying to establish here, Ashford, you asked a fundamental question that I think that have haunted us from the past, and that is to have some reconciliation. The elite class that were established from 1847 to 1980 brought in the division. They never brought in the sense of belonging to a community of people within a country. They brought in a division. They decided to call themselves American Liberians. Dr. Fix talked about research. They were educated. The indigenous people were not educated, but they decided to drive their
Are you
mindset.
more indigenous than me? Question. Are you more indigenous than me? Let address the issue. Are you more indigenous than me?
The answer is no. But the question
Okay,
here
thank
is
you very much.
the
So
question here
that's the
is
stupidity we're
the
trying to
question
get rid of. You
the,
will never be
the
more
question here
indigenous
is
than me. You will
the
never
question
be
here
more
is
native than me.
the
But I
question
belong to the
the,
Congo
que-
tribe.
the
You will
question here
never,
is
ever in your
the,
lifetime be more native
Renzo,
than
G
me.
Grace, G Grace. Hems vocal, I pure number one vocal, I pure number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, a new sheriff is in town, does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Ham's Vodka, Ham's Honey, Ham's Bitter, and Ham's Original Vodka. Ham's Vodka has no hangover. That's what they say, Papa drink, Mama happy. Ham's Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Ham's Vodka at 0777 001114, 0777 000 We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Ham's Vodka or www.hansvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Hans North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755-8411. Hans Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Hans Vodka brings out the real man in you.
I hope you have a shot of a little bit of Heinz vodka. Let us go to Lexi Brooks Roberts.
I wasn't done though. That's not fair. I wasn't done.
I thought you concluded.
I wasn't done. I
I'm-
wasn't done.
Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
But man, everybody getting 30 seconds. You gotta use your 30 seconds, bro.
No,
Come on.
but when you are speaking and somebody interrupting you and
Okay.
talking to me,
Brittany, I mean 30 seconds, please. Let's go. Your 30 seconds.
all right. So I think Dr. Frey had embarrassed himself and the way he conducted himself tonight. He had disproved the doctor he has, because not all doctors are created equal. So it's a shame to get so angry here and start to use profanity here. I did not use profanity. I want to challenge the misinformation and the disinformation you are providing here. All right, the slave became a citizen of the United States in 1868 based on the 14th Amendment. The slave that left the country of the United States and went to Africa, they established the class system. They created the problem. And the way we can solve that problem is to provide education to our people and begin to reconcile. But today he is the one who is also part of the divide that we are discussing here today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Was that Joel or Mrs. Roberts? Who won it?
Miss Roberts,
Mrs. Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah. From what I understood, the question was, should the country Congo divide have any place in our body politics?
Right.
And while we're going back on the root cause of it, what we are talking about tonight is why is it still prevalent, especially during our election time? Why is it everybody plays together, but when it's time for this election, suddenly some people are more Liberian than others? And that's where I have a problem. And as we stated, even regardless how things went down, let's just put it in layman terms. At this point, 200 years later, none of those people, most of the people in Liberia were born here in America or were recently on a slave ship going back. So all of us over there are part of the soil, are people that were born there. So nobody can say we shouldn't be doing this to each other. Or because you're Randy Dapple and I'm Letitia Roberts. No, like I said, you don't know how I got my name. I don't know how you got your name. There are people that have slave names and consciously change them to sound, as he said, to say more indigenous.
Thank you.
Because they wanted to free themselves from this same argument. So we need to stop, and in this election time, stop pitting at each other that, oh, my mom is, my sister is more than your brother or your father or your candidate. So this is the issue, not when did it start, who came and why.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
We've passed that point. Thank
Joel
you.
Dennis.
I think that elephant is still in the room, Mrs. Roberts. But you know what tickles me sometimes is when I see all these slave movies where you'll see a slave ship, a white man's slave ship land in Africa, and you'll see Africans playing on the shores, and all of a sudden they start running, as if the white man was just so powerful and he just came and they were just so afraid of him. The Africans I know, they won't just give him a chance to tie his ship down, gather his things, run on land and start to capture black people. Africans were complicit in the slave trade. If you didn't have Africans selling each other, there wouldn't have to have been slaves in the first place. And if we want to look at history itself, we are looking at the history that was written from the Western perspective. Africans never wrote nothing down. Okay, so all this history that's being spewed out tonight, this is history that's written by white people. So if you want to go back, the first time the U.S. decided that slavery was immoral and they needed to do something with Black Americans, with African Americans at that time, Liberia was not even in the conversation. That land, that Green Coast was not even in the conversation. And I believe it was 1808 when James Monroe decided to stop slavery. Stop transcontinental slavery. Okay, meaning he's put the United States Navy on the ocean, and any slave ship that was en route to America or anywhere in the West, it didn't matter if they came from the Congo, it didn't matter if it came from the Middle East, they were all going to Liberia. So this is where you see the Congo people coming from. Hold on, no, we're not, no, hold on, I'm not done. I'm not getting 30 seconds. These people are getting 50 minutes and everything here. But I'll wrap it up.
You have more than 60 seconds, my man. Go ahead.
Then it doesn't matter. I'll wrap it up. So that Congo thing, the Congo divide, it's there today. It will remain there until my generation, your generation die. But this is the only thing I gotta say. Those so-called people who are coming to America now, the so-called native people who are coming to America now and being forced to live in America, they're having children. Their children will return back to Liberia as Congo children, as African-American children. I dare one of them go take their children and go take them to the poor society or take them in the bush, let them circumcise them. I dare them. Those children that they're having in America, in the Western countries, are Congo children, are American Liberians. I'll leave it like that.
That is added.
Now, Ashford, I am just stuck on the reality that the Congo people carry classism to Liberia and elitism. Classism, sense of elitism is a human problem in every society. The last time I checked about our Liberian culture, it only became prevalent several years later. But you didn't marry outside of your tribe. Within the Kru tribe, there are people who refer to themselves as Huyaple. Huyaple were the people who were living near the ocean versus the people in the city or the bush. They didn't mix. That's classism. All right. So while it is true that indeed there were some cultural problems as far as the integration of the country, but to say one group took this there is not true. In Africa, we were fighting intertribal wars. They had indentured servitude, where Africans captured Africans and used them as slaves. It happened in Liberia. It happened all over the world. All over Africa. All right. The first tribes that settled in Liberia were the Kisi and the Gola people. In the 12th century, then came the Kran, the Grebo, the Kru, the Bassa, among several other people. So we are all indigenous in many ways, shape, or form. It is sad that, because of elections, we have to be playing these politics just to win the hearts and minds of the Liberian people. But the truth is, until we learn to reconcile this country and see Liberia as a nation better for all of us and talk about substance and not personal attacks, hopefully we'll win the hearts and minds of people. But there are those who just want to perpetrate this because they know by doing this isolates other people from taking on the helm of power, which is wrong. Thank you.
Dr. Cooper.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to waive my time on this one. I'm enjoying Reverend Addy or Pastor Addy. So if he can continue,
Okay,
I'm learning a lot.
we're gonna just go to the line and take a few calls. The number to call is 267-248-5295. I think we have Dr. Artemus Gate on the line from Illinois. Hello, Doc.
Yes, hello, Ashford and the wonderful team. You are doing a splendid show. I hope this show was what you have been the past and 10 years. Because you are erecting checkpoints, and the good thing that some people who we know have been on the radio propagating the various party issues. But this is an excellent, excellent show. And I hope this was what, again, you have been part of the past and 10 years, rekindling the knowing of our history. So a few things I want to say here. I appreciate all of the panelists, and yet we need to correct some errors here. And one of the errors, and I want to state this, it is because of a slave ship for the Africa in 17. Well, in the first case, we brought over to the U.S. Supreme Court in 17, the Africa. And that was where today this name Congo would come into the Liberian playbook. New Georgia, we know today, New Georgia was founded by those group of people who, as Idatin was right, and Mr. Joel Enfix, they are from all over Africa. They were brought and they became a case held in Savannah, Georgia. It will be brought by Mr. Stockton, and it will become the longest serving case in the U.S. Supreme Court. And because of that, even when Liberia was founded, that's why the budget, the 1819 Act of Addition, to form an asylum in Africa took place. And because of that, the name Congo entered into the playbook.
Thank you, Dr.
Those
Gay.
people who will come later in 88 will never ever call themselves American Liberians. There's not document you'll ever see. So I just wanted that to be added
Thank you so
in
much.
this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Herbert Fisk. Hello.
Ashford.
Welcome to the show, bro.
I'm good, man. I agree with the last caller. Your show is really fabulous, and honestly, you guys, the way you guys articulate, every subject is wonderful. But I just want to correct certain things as well that Dr. Fisk said. You see, people need to understand that history. If you look at history, you look at migration. Now, and Pastor Addy can actually correct me if I'm wrong. Even from the Bible, the original Jews that settled in Israel, because Jesus was a Jew. He wasn't nothing else, but he was a Jew. Now, after Christ was crucified, what happened? There were a lot of migration. They migrated into Europe. They went into Rome, okay? When they got prosecuted, what happened next? They migrated down to Africa. You understand? It tells you that they were the first people that actually established the Songhai Empire. What am I saying? You understand what I'm saying? When people migrate, they intermarriage and all of those things, you understand, they bring what they know. So for people to start insinuating that all kinds of people started to divide, let's look at a short history of Liberia. Who was the first person to even have the interim presidency of Liberia? It wasn't even just a Jenkins Robert, it was a guy called James Smith. Jenkins Roberts came. And most of these guys ruled for a short term. But the question I want to ask Mr. Dapo, who was the longest ruling president of Liberia? Wasn't it President Tubman? He ruled for 27 years. Tubman was considered a native guy. He wasn't considered a Congo guy. You know what I'm saying? So even when Tolbert came, Tolbert ruled for 9 years. And when Tolbert was executed, from Tolbert until today, who's been running the country? Indigenous. You know what I'm saying? So people need to stop the nonsense for this divide.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
People are tribal people of Liberia. Thank you, Ashford.
Thank you, Mr. Fisk. We have the 717 number. The last 4 digits of your phone number is 2005. Please tell us your name. 2005. Tell us your name, please. Going once, Going twice. We have a 302 number. Hello, tell us your name, please.
Hello.
How are you? Tell us your name.
My name is Jim. You calling from Dover, Delaware?
You're live on the radio. Go ahead with your point.
Yes. I want to say thank you for this topic. This topic has opened my mind and under the brain history. But there is something that happened on the show tonight that it's just a little bit of advice to you, Mr. ASHFORD GARLEY. If you bring a guest on the show for a specific topic, let our guest remain on the show until that discussion ends. The doctor just made his points and he left, and I have some questions for him.
But in the case, the doctor is not a guest; he's a panelist of the show.
Yeah,
he leaves at that time every Friday. So, just so you know, I don't know how often, how long you've been monitoring the show.
Okay, but Jay Ronnie made some good points. He opened my eyes. Something my history teacher said, Jay Ronnie just and summed it up. He said, I remember him pretty well. He said, we can't teach in that other part, the other history. I don't know what he meant by that. But Jay Ronnie struck a very good point. Before the slaves came, there were people living here. And the slaves that came to Liberia, they were educated compared to those that met in Liberia. Unfortunately, they never taught the indigenous people the education system that they brought, and that is a problem. I just want to acknowledge. That.
Thank you,
Roddy Dabo. Thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you for the show, Mr. ASHFORD GARLEY.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for calling. Okay,
Can I say something? Can I make a comment?
We are making progress now for the next segment, but go ahead.
Just one comment on what the caller last said. You know, this fantasy that these people think that the slaves that came back to Liberia were educated. Let me put it in context for you. If you look at a Black American today who's 19-year-old from Mississippi, Alabama, okay, those were children. Joseph Jingles Robert was a child when he came to Liberia. It's not a grown man. These people, the people that came back was not Barack Obama type quality. Let's be real. These were slave institutionalized people from Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. They were in survival mode. And furthermore, for the first, I believe, eight years, there was a white governor presiding over the colony of Maserado, not the whole Liberia. For the first, I believe, 8 years, there were all white governors until Joseph Jingles Robert took over in 1847. So there was no highly educated slaves. Is that a joke? Did they have college that slaves went to in America back in those days? They were on a plantation 16 hours a day. So this whole idea that, these people came back and they were educated and they were unfair, they were unfair. No, they were in survival mode. They were being attacked by the natives on the land because the natives were selling them. The slavery was black gold at the time. They knew if you ended slave, guess what? The economy would collapse. So that's the reason the native didn't even want the slave to end. And it didn't end. And like I said earlier in the show, if you give Liberian people today there was a case the other day, they are still involved in human trafficking. So nothing much has changed. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
ASHFORD, can I come in a little bit?
Yes, I think it's fair to bring you in. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, Joel, I'm not here to tell you what to say, but some of the choices of words, I think if we are trying to mitigate or find a common denominator here, it's not going to be selling too well to say some of the so-called native people that came to America here. That is a recipe that can resuscitate.
When did I say that? When did I say that?
Before the commercial, you said some of the so-called native that come here to go to school here and learning here. You use that word.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. So, I use the word so-called because I guess that's how when you talk about the divide in Liberia, you call yourself native and you call people Conga. So I have to use the word native. The word is used.
So I just want you to be careful because if we are talking about solution here and not to escalate what we've seen as a problem, then I think we should be very professional here not to be like Dr. Fritz, who just insult and run away, and not to be using words that make no sense.
Answer my question. Is the word native an insult?
No.
What's the insult?
When Dr. Fritz started to
No,
use,
I'm asking you, how do you feel? If I offended you, I apologize. But
no,
tell me
I'm
what
not saying, no.
native is
I'm
native
just
an
telling
insult.
you, I'm just telling you the word you use, like
Okay. Are you done addressing that? Apple, we have to move on to the next segment.
Ashford, I'm already being interrupted. I'm trying to clarify that, so I'm not done yet.
But tell me, I want you to know what offended you, so I can correct it.
No, it's not offend. It's nothing offend me. I'm just trying to caution you that the audience you're speaking to, you have to be very careful how you use like the word, those so-called, because that can also be used against the Congo people as well. So I'm just saying that don't draw first blood in how you say things. I'm not telling you how to say your thing, but
Okay.
I just think those are some.
I want you to tell me how do I address the word native people? How do I
mean,
address that? What
you
do I call them?
just said it in the context of which you speak. If you say, you know what, I think most of the Congo people that travel over to the US here, they will learn new things. But rather than say those so-called, and you know, somebody can also say those so-called Congo people that came to Liberia.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's fine.
if you're okay with that, but I'm
okay with that.
Okay,
That's not an insult.
For me, I won't use that because I'm looking for solution here. But Ashford, just to
conclude, 30 seconds.
Ashford, Reverend Ade, you don't control the time here. You don't control that time, so you just wait over there. Ashford,
you got to speak.
No, I was just asking Ashford for my 30 seconds. Not you.
You know one thing I was there, Ashford. Whenever I'm in the show, everybody attacking me. I don't know. So do you guys just bring me up for me to be attacked? But I will not relax because I will attack anybody who attack me. So let's try to have conversation.
Correction, brother, Mr. Dapo.
There we go again. Yes, ma'am.
Again? No, I just wanted to make a point of correction.
Okay.
We do talk in turns. We don't attack each other. We give each other time to talk.
Well, maybe
so we have a discourse rather than an argument.
And maybe the better choice of word would be I keep getting interrupted. And I don't know why, because sometimes I sit and watch your show, and when everyone of the same line having a conversation, there's no cross interruption.
Everyone is not on the same line.
It becomes a problem.
So what are you?
Let me say this, because I disagree with most of the things you said, and most of you guys are all agreeable people. So when I come out,
that's true. That's not true.
So let me just conclude here quickly. All right.
Okay.
The issue of the Congo divide, I don't care how people try to spin it. History has shown that when they arrived in Liberia, they decided to isolate themselves, but based on some intervention that required for inclusiveness, they decided to establish the elite class. And it can be shown throughout the country. Prior to 1980, most of the educated people were those who were of African American descent, the American-Liberia descent. Now, in America here, not everyone, even up to today, is educated. But the system of how you were treated, the way you were treated, you don't have to sit in the classroom to be educated. The fact that you learn what the white man did to you is called visual education. The fact that you understand that things bad happened to you is called experience. So when they return to Liberia, they don't have to carry PhDs, they don't have to carry masters, bachelor, but the fact that the way the inequality existed here, they should have visually seen what was wrong and begin to help the people right there. What is the right thing to do? But they failed to do that. So to Monju point who called, he's right. Frederick is right. The education, the people who left from here carry back home, they design their own system. Was that system based on PhD? The elitism that Dr. Adu is talking, Dr. Ade is talking about, they established that. They remember, they said the interior. They said they were Congo. All right? They gave all names. So why can't we just admit that they started the labeling and divide thing? They started those things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashford, can I come in, please?
Yes.
So, every time we're trying to search for a common ground, let's start with the parlance, the words we're using. First of all, in this modern sociological and cultural awareness we have, we know we are no longer referring to human beings as slaves. We refer to them as formerly enslaved, speaking from a sociological perspective.
There's no restriction.
So we don't call human beings slaves, formerly enslaved. Secondly, when Rennie said there was no classism, then I'm very much confused because I don't know if he's heard about Africa having kings and queens. Sondiata Keita, Musa Kanka, all these different kingdoms we had in Africa. There was some sense of societal echelon or stratification, indicative of cultural elitism. Everybody was not always rich. You had the king, and all these different people who served them. So this is the reality. So for you to say one group took one aspect of life to Liberia, I don't think it's fair at
When
all.
you look at the
And that
statistics,
is why.
Reverend Ade, I'm sorry for interrupting, but when you look at the statistics, let's look at the length and breadth of the country. All right. How many educated people did we have? How many infrastructure? How many business left essential that the rest of the county that was in existence prior to 1980 that had what was in Mosurado County? Wasn't that
okay? Good.
As inequality?
All right. So let me provide some clarification using your words. When the settlers went to Liberia, when the settlers went to Liberia, you did not have what you now call counties today. Montserrat County was Liberia. Okay? It was later on expanded, not until 1857 when Maryland joined. So all of the counties that you are including in infrastructure development did not originate at the formation of Liberia.
But those land were there.
It was not until, hold on. It was not until, let me finish. It was not until between 1842 to 1847, 1942 to 1946, 1920s, when Liberia started to invest in concessions. And those who founded their country, they were not exporting anything concessionary. They were borrowing money to build your mansions. They were borrowing money to expand the country, to open up the internet. Mr. Dapo, you're not allowing me to finish.
All right.
If it's okay with you, or better yet, I can stop so you can continue, and then I'll come in after you. Go ahead, Mr. Dapo.
No, what I wanted to say, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. What I wanted to say here is, in spite of what you discussing, what you're presenting, the geographic, the landscape were still there. But those who were in leadership from 1847 up to 1980, that was 133 years. And when we look at what were done within 133 years, it only impacted the geographic of Mosurado County, irrespective of the fact that there were lands that were over there. There were no reason that you and I would understand unless you want to be biased in that. But there should have been a reason why we could have gone beyond that. And even David Coleman, who were part of that range of leadership, decided to integrate that part of the country. And he was only given one term, and G.W. Gibson took after him. So the facts are there. It's just that we don't want to admit it. And I think they should talking about the solution. I think it would be fair that we look at all the causes and what can we do to fix the problem. Because we are a new generation of people. But we must admit to the fact, if the additional man had led the country for 133 years, and let's say the American Liberian, the settler, had not been given the opportunity the additional people had, the conversation would be different today. But it is it's the American Liberian that came with that idea. So, Reverend Ade, I respect you giving me the time, but I just want you to understand that the land that we had, it was not only limited to where the settlers were. Those lands are only developed today based on the history that was left by the leadership.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So actually, can I reclaim my time? 30 seconds?
Yes.
Reverend Ada will come in. Following that, we'll go to the next segment, please, guys.
I have the liquor coming too, man.
You've made several comments, my man. We got to go.
There's something that's being said that is factually incorrect.
Now, if you guys just want us to be on this particular topic,
well, I will make one comment, and that's it.
Go ahead, Mr. Addict, and then Joel will come in.
Right. So this is what is further festering the divide. When people make this historically erroneous error that since 1847 Liberia was a prosperous nation, when the economic fact is there, that we didn't start exporting until the early 40s, late 50s, and 70s. So Liberia was not the nation state you have today. to have development expanded there. So, I mean, you can shake your head all you want. The truth remains is that when Liberia was founded, it did not incorporate. And that is why when Lofa will tell you when Lofa joined Liberia. Okay, the history is there as to when Maryland joined Liberia. So when you say for 133 years, as if to say all of these things were happening at a time where development should have expanded, you were not exporting anything in the early formation of Liberia. And so let me just remind you, in terms of education, that those who settled on the land did not educate the people. The MCSS school systems you have today and the quality of education that our generation have, Mr. Dapo, we can boast about that reality because we're under the administration of the quote unquote the settlers or the Congo people. For all those years, they educated us until 1980, when we started experiencing a degeneration in our quality of education and the expansion and benefits of the resources to the nation state. Not to mention the fact that after 1980 to now, over the span of several years, indigenous who have been leading the country find themselves yet plagued with the very rampant corruption, nepotism, and tribalism, affecting the very reconciliation that we're looking for today. And all we're saying is, yes, we can recognize the problem as I close. We can recognize the problem. I'm not talking about a government that was perfect. There were some social problems certainly going on. That is a fact. We understand that. But how do we move forward in this generation with the current reality we're dealing with? How do we reconcile? Do we continue to live off the past in a way that antagonizes us because we want political power that further divides us? Then our generation, those of us who are having children in these United States whose accents have changed, when they go home, they will definitely not be regarded as Liberians. Even us who are in America, when we go home today for job, they look at us differently. We must come together as one people, indivisible under God, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Joy Dennis.
Yeah, let's look at, and I'll try to be brief because it seems like, where do we even start? Like the pastor said earlier, do we start at when we were sold into slavery, or do we start when the slaves returned, the former slaves returned to Liberia? If we're going to start there, let's talk about the deal, because this fantasy that Liberia is just not true. It was called the Green Coast. So let's talk about the deal that made Liberia what it is today. That $300 worth of bow and arrows, bullets, and whatever the Navy negotiated for the land that's called Liberia. But let's put this into context. If the U.S. had not purchased that land at that time, Liberia would have been enveloped either in Sierra Leone, Guinea, or Ivory Coast. There was no black country in the world at that time, with the exception of Ethiopia. There was no black country in West Africa that was self-governing. And Pastor Adam was right. These people borrowed money. Liberia got into a $5 million debt from the West, and they almost got the land taken back from them. They almost got had another white administration that was going to govern the country. So there was no indigenous Liberians that was just running around. Governing themselves in that area. They were either escaping colony from being colonized in Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, or Guinea. So we do need to. I agree. We do need to find a common ground on where do we meet in the middle to solve these problems and stop attacking one another. Because at the end of the day, we are all Liberians. I'll leave it at that.
Dapo?
Yes, I think if we decide to personalize this conversation rather than looking for a solution, then one side will want to win it all. The fight remains unchanged. The land called the Green Coast, the Pepper Coast, and Liberia, and those who decided to only limit themselves to Moserado County, they knew that Moserado County had other petition to the land, but they decided to remain in Monrovia and Moserado County. And that prompted them to say, we have the hinterland, we have the interior, we have the native people. How did the terms came about? Because the geographic was kind of divided. So in order to have the conversation, we must make sure that we understand the cost factor. that led to the question that is being asked today. And until we understand the cause factor and begin to educate every generation that comes through our country, that we give them a sense of new direction and new meaning, that we are all of the same. We have kids in the country today that are Liberians. When they go back, they're not going to look at J. Randy coming from River G. They're not going to look at anybody else coming from Bapu because they are seeing the reality on this side. But the older population that came here with a divide and rule, they want to maintain that elite class, and it's not going to hold because nowadays the remnant of the poor leadership in our country for 133 years are things that we're seeing today. The refusal to put education into context across the length and breadth of the country have fueled, have regenerated, have reproduced, have opened the assembly lines that we have many young people in our country today that are uneducated. And Reverend Ade, when you talk about corruption, I think you should be a little bit careful because there are videos out here that I have that show that our natural resources belong to certain elite class. And those class of people were marrying interrelatedly to keep the riches among themselves. And that totally disenfranchised, disproportionately put people of the hinterland, as they call them, out of connection with some type of economic wealth and education. And I keep posting the question you asked for. No matter the size or no matter the number of county we have, but the land that cover the entire country that we call Liberia today, irrespective of what name were there, the people that existed there today, how come those part of the country are still undeveloped? The last time I checked, when Tobo died, we had 9 counties, but within that 9 counties, they were not even developed. And there was no blueprint that showed that it was supposed to be expanded across that. David Coleman tried that. He was removed by the same inner circle. So the fire is, we must understand the causation, the contributing factor, and the root cause is based on poor leadership. What the current administration is doing, out of all the presidents we have had, technically we have only had 2 native presidents, George Weah and Samuel Kanyando. For though he didn't even serve his total term, we just left Ellie, who is half and half, took all that money, and there's no blueprint for the remaining 14 counties. So where do we go? I think we need to be honest to ourselves and take blame where blame belongs and put in the corrective action where today administration is not doing so well. I think with that, we will make a better country that we can leave for the next generation.
Thank you. I will bring in excuse me, Mrs. Roberts, Dr. Record Fellow, then on the platform tonight, based on what was discussed, we can attempt to find some solutions before we go home tonight. Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts.
Yeah. For me, again, I'm enjoying the topic. However, it seems like it's going here, there, everywhere. So while you're finding solutions, I will sit back and relax.
Dr. Rockefeller Cooper. The man nigga neighbor. Yeah.
Mega money let me tell you.
Mega money You look at that. You look at that.
What nigga money? I thought y'all be funny upon you. Let me tell you now, man.
No, the conversation, is quite interesting because just when I think of, when we go, Liberia and we go visit upriver, and everything that you experience when you look at the graves of our loved ones, and you see the difference because like the type of stones that were used from back in the day, and so just listening when you compare things just across, it's a very interesting conversation. I'm sure it's going to take time to unravel a lot, but one thing that I want to share with you, Jay Rennie, is this: the term American Liberian. Now, you see, for me, I can speak to it comfortably because this is something I've been marinated in. I saw where you were coming from, and I also saw where Dr. Fisk came from as well. But you see, that term has been, and this is something that we do in Liberia. We tend to misuse words and we just leave it as is. Slaves came to Liberia and they resettled. They became Liberianized. Okay,
He make a
and we
good
start
children.
and we started calling them American Liberians. So, like you read, when you read the article or the article from which you regurgitated your information regarding American Liberians returning to Liberia, that was more than likely from the writer's standpoint of view, because when people write, people who write, they have their own style of writing. So I think now that is something that we need, that we need to look at. Who is okay, the American Liberian, or how will you differentiate between an American Liberian and a Congo? Okay, from my understanding, the Congos were those who just trickle down. That trickle down effect is a product of the trickle down effect of the settlers coming, settling in, and then you bring it on down to where you got American Liberians, and then of course you got the Congo. And I'll tell you this, for example, I'm from Clay Ashland. Okay, I went to West Virginia to work once upon a time, and I ended up in an area called Ashland. From talking with people there, I got to establish that. Well, I got to learn of Henry Clay. Henry Clay was from Kentucky, so Henry Clay, who was from Kentucky and had some ties with Ashland. That's how you had the name. You got the name Clay Ashland being found. Okay, so I think it's a subject as a whole, a delicate subject that we have to take time as we as we slice and dice to have a clear understanding of. So I just wanted to throw that in, so because there was no need for us going to war. But I didn't want to respond before you say I responded to my Congo brother. So
No, but I think, if you don't mind, I can for 30 seconds. I think, Dr. Cooper, you did say something, and I will agree with you that we need to put things into context. And I think the context should focus on educating our people, because the lack of education kind of, spiral into different direction that get us all like this. Even if you look at the American today, the African American, after slavery and 4 million American were uneducated. You have someone like BW, articles like BWI, Booker T. Washington. You had D.W. Du Bois. The guy decided to open vocational school as we know it today, the HBC, Black Historical Black University. I think what we need to do in our country, every one of us who are here, whether you're from the indigenous side of the country or from the American side, the new generation need to put aside politics and look at what we can legacy and begin to develop new chapters of bringing people back together. Because at the end of the day, those who became victimized of the old system and those who master the system, they will be fading away. We are the descendant of those generation, and if we continue to repeat what we're doing here, I think it will be a disservice to the young generation by 2065. So I think what we
And
need to
now
look
you
at
get
is,
the point.
I think what we need to, but I've been getting the point a long time ago, but it's just that people are not aligned. And but what I think we need to do here is we need to develop a curriculum from our side that is out of politics. And for me, I don't put politics when it comes to how we have been affected, because myself that here, it was not my name that brought me here. I came here through a scholarship. But before then, there were people who were well connected that came to this country. But had it not been for my own self-determination, I with no connection, I wouldn't have been here. So when I look at it, I think, you know what, we have challenges in our country. Equally so, we have bread mines on both sides. And I think, as for bringing the topic here, it's not going to be the end. I think we can continue, but as we continue, we should build upon it and not to bring all what Mr. Dr. was saying, because he was being very positive tonight. I'm not Congo, I'm this. That's not what we're talking about here. The question was, how can we get along?
Your owner watch 30 seconds and still on. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Listen, folks. As we go home tonight, Joel. So let us try to find a little bit of solution. When do we stay away from we want our country back? Where you would listen, people would make songs like the country giant, and where we hear statements like the so-called native or the so-called Congo. When do we get away from all of those things? As we approach these elections come October, we need to come together. No one is more Liberian than the other. We understand that people came long before, but this time now, let us see each other as brothers and sisters that belong to Liberia, both Liberia first, and help our country move forward. Joe Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, I think this generation that uh, came after the war or during the war, I think we all feel personally injured, psychologically, socially. We all suffer from some sort of trauma, um, and I think that we do have a lot in common. We have more in common that could bring us together that than divide us. I mean, we love that country, Liberia. For those of us on this side in America here or in the West, there is not one day that we don't sit in this country and say, God damn, I wish I was back home.
You're right about that.
We feel like hostages here. So, I mean, those are the things that we share in common. We all want to have, we know we're not going to have the same lifestyle that we have in America, but if we can just have, something decent where we can sit down together and, eat fufu and soup together, laugh, and don't feel like we're working frantically every single day, grinding it out and not even living. One thing Liberians share in common is that family. Your friend, the neighbor down the street is more than just a friend. He's your family. It's not like here where your next door neighbor, you don't even know that person. I grew up in Liberia. I seen my parents by 12, 1 o'clock. They were on somebody's back porch, drinking, bonding, making relationships. We don't have that anymore. So, I mean, I think going forward, we do need to bond around the love that we have of Liberia and not focus on what divides us. Because what divides us is really not us. It's the policy that came before us. The policy that preceded us. It is a white supremacist policy. We all have been indoctrinated by that. From the Catholic Church, all the churches that came in around Africa, they have one goal. They have one goal, and that indoctrination has led all of us to either to pick sides, and until we get together and I mean honestly love one another, trust one another, we will not be able to get through this. So I'll leave it at that.
And Reverend Adi, what do you stand on this? I mean, there are gatherings back home where some people don't feel welcome. Thank God for ASHFORD GARLEY. I'm a crime man. I'm proud of where I come from, but I can go in any gathering and make my presence felt. Because I'm confident in my own skin, and I'm confident, of who I am. But others don't have that confidence. And as we approach these elections, and it's so funny that every time there's an election, that's when you start to hear about this country and Congo divide. I don't think in this day and age we should be talking about this.
And Ashford, you're absolutely correct. The interesting thing is, when you really look at our statistics on what religion Liberians ascribe to, they will say Christianity. So if Christianity is certainly the religion you definitely ascribe yourself to or professes to be a practitioner or a practicing of, the fact remains that forgiveness is highly cardinal. We learn to look at one another. We have to learn to look at one another from a place of love. Our sense of self needs to transcend to a mindset of nationalism, while at the same time embracing our diversity through tribalism. We need to embrace our sense of patriotism. If my statement will further divide the nation, then I need not make it. We need to hold our leaders who are running for the presidency accountable when they begin to, use statements that further divide us along this country Congo lines. It's also important that governments who come to power stop stealing the money so that Liberians can feel empowered, educated, and have the ability to give back to their own country. If Liberians have an opportunity to grow economically in their own country, there will be no need for all of these issues because meritocracy will become the order of the day for those who are educated and those who are being educated by our government. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a very severe quagmire. But we who are this generation, we need to carry the message of peace, the message of hope, the message of reconciliation, not discounting that things happen in our past that we need to talk about, but be in a space of forgiveness and letting go. Because the truth is, our children who are being born here, and those of us who have lived here for a very long time, our accents have changed. Our accents have changed. We don't talk the same. So when we go home, do we expect our brothers to embrace us because we sound different or reject us because we sound different? But this is the reality. So we must learn to forgive. Let's move forward. Let the love of God remains resonant in our hearts. And let's begin to speak truth to power while at the same time embracing our diversity, but owing to one truth that above all, Liberia.
Eddie Brooks Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Valley. I totally agree that we should do this education to our younger generation, that they need to know the history, and they need to know what makes us more alike than what divides us, as Pastor said. And when we hear people of aspiring to the highest office speaking in these divisive terms, when the young people know the history, they will see where these people are going. Because there are people that were born right there, lived right there, and they still possess fairness of skin and, different traits that distinguish them, because they may be from another neighboring sub-Saharan area. So all of this divisiveness is coming from the people that aspire to be leaders. And when you are a leader, you don't divide. You do more to unite and, point out what brings us together and how you can make it better, rather than do things to undermine your opponent, because you have less to argue about. So Liberians, when you hear people um making fun, or trying to bring somebody down, you should use that as a judgment tool. Like, why is he not using or talking about some of the, as the US ambassador said, let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about what you can do different than the other candidates, rather than point out things that, as I heard the young aspirant say, poverty is not it's not for Liberia. It's not something that we should be proud of. So because I suffered, so I should be more of a Liberian. No, it's just about how your parents, or your timeline God gave you, how what He has in store for you. We can all come from the same place, and there are people that aspire to be, or that not even aspire, that are born to be greater than others. So let's stop this divide and unite our bring more unity to our people and to the high office.
Dr. Rockefeller Cooper, then we'll go to closing statement
Thank
and
you.
cut this tonight. Dr. Cooper.
Yes. So just another point that crossed my mind, Ashford, is this. Remember, I was talking earlier about this whole like being Congo by extension. Again, the mentality that was brought by these individuals that were repatriated and settled in Liberia. They saw what happened with them on a plantation, and so now they too, when they also arrived in like to Liberia, that's the mindset they had, that that they were quote unquote the big boys, and
Mhm.
so those who they met were going to be their subjects. For example, they were sleeping with the indigenous women as well, okay, having children by them. So what do you now, how will you now classify the child who was born onto now at this time I would say a so-called native, just because I'm speaking in context,
Mhm.
okay? A so-called native versus also a so-called Congo, meaning that what? Okay, because maybe he too was a native that was raised by one of the American Liberians, and with that mentality, okay, or even if it doesn't matter if it was one of the originals that also slept with an indigenous woman and had children, how will you classify those children, as well? Okay, so I think, like I said, it's a delicate situation, and this is something that ran on. Lest we not forget, Talbot, I believe, had passed into law that I think the age of consent was I think 13 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. So when you look at these things, these practices were the same things that were happening on a slave plantation. Okay, so I mean, this topic has to be dissected layer by layer so that we have a clear understanding, and hopefully, we should at some point in time. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, folks, again,
So, Ashford, 30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
but I'm not. You
30
can do
seconds.
you can do your 30 seconds in the closing. That we got to go.
Okay.
Again, I want to thank all of you for taking up time. This is just not a one-time thing. I think as we get further into these elections, we will continue to come across this, and it is our obligation as the fourth estate to continue to talk about this. And I will hope that we always encourage our kids to go back home. Back in '83, when there was no academic focus, my mother sent me to Grand Jita to live, and I remember living in Grand Jita. I would walk 6 hours one way from the town we go to school to the village. And we'll leave at 6 a.m., get there by 12, pick up the load, the rice on your head, and walk back home. By the time we get home, it's about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then we, the big boys in the house, because 12, 13, then you consider big boy. We would pour water on our head for my uncle at the time to take his bath, his wife, his children, and before we take our shower to go to school. And it was pretty much tough. But then fast forward in 2018, I took my kids to Liberia. I grew up in Jalatown. And when my son saw how we used to go to defecate, he was cultural shock. Go on the river where, climb on the stairs. Yeah, Jerry knows what I'm talking about. The outside toilet. And my daughter, she's sociable. She didn't have time. She was there climbing on the sea. Oh, Daddy used to live here. We showed them a room and everything. But my son was concerned. He was shocked. So in what Joel was saying earlier, that the kids that are born here, they consider what the conquered children, that American Liberian, because we came here and have this, so they no longer consider indigenous. They call themselves Congo because, and in fact, they don't even want to live there. Now I tell my son, when are we going back? That I'm good. I'm good. But my daughter still wants to go back home, and I think we should do this more often. Take our kids back home to see the birthplaces or the birthplace of their parents. With that said, let us close out tonight. Idatus, you can begin your closing statement in addition to what you had to say earlier.
So I just want to state for the record that before the white man went to Africa, Africans were practicing slavery among themselves. You can look at the history of ancient Egypt between 305 BC to 30 BC, from the Nile River all the way down. They were capturing one another and using them as domestic help under their supervision. So the mentality of subjugating one another to inhumane actions were not brought primarily by the people from America who were practicing indentured servitude, where tribal wars allowed people to capture fellow Africans and had them enslaved. The first slavers that went to Liberia were the Portuguese, Puerto Quetta. They were the first people that went there in 1415 and started practicing Western slavery. So let's get that clear. This phenomenon of subjugating ourselves beneath one another, it's a human phenomenon. It's a very serious decadent of our socio-cultural selves, something that really needs to improve. But there is a solution, and that solution is let's respect our diversity, embrace one another as one people, one nation, indivisible under God, with liberty and justice for all. Let's look at our past and be honest about it and talk about it from a place of reconciliation, not to further bring about the animosity or the hate. Speaking truth to power is a reality. Government having a vision that empowers people through education and the economy will help us graduate to a place of great collaboration for the greater good of the country. And finally, I like to state for the record, until we embrace patriotism above individualism and nationalism above tribalism, we might find ourselves right back to the same politics of animosity and division. Thank you.
Jordan, this closing statement, please.
Uh, you know, growing up in Liberia, I will admit something here. I was sheltered. Okay, I was sheltered. I mean, there's no confusion here. I've stated so many times that I'm a proud Congo man, and will remain that, whatever that means to anybody. But I would say this: when I came to America, until I came to America, I've met some really, 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 really good friends that I know if I had stayed in Liberia, and let's say nothing had changed, the Congo people still been in power, the person that I've become today, I would not have been that person. I was sheltered. I was sheltered in a very Congo family, and most of my friends were very, very Congo. In America today, that's not the situation, and I thank God for that, because those people, those friends that I have today, those people that are in my immediate social circle, some of those people have had such a tremendous impact on my character, and I am grateful for that. I mean, going forward though, we all Liberians, all of us, we do need to figure out how to get through this trauma, the trauma from the injury that our ancestors brought, the injury from the war. We need to get through that trauma. We all need to sit on somebody's couch and figure out how we can become more mentally, emotionally stable, because we're not. As a people, as Liberians, we're not stable mentally. I mean, we'll say one thing publicly, but privately declaring something else. So just like the American Civil War, or just like the American War, when the children go to war and they come back, they send them to seek counseling. We all need that to move forward. Thank you.
Dr. Rockefeller Cooper. Closing statement.
Yes, I mean, like I said, this whole subject matter needs to be looked at. It's not a one-day thing. We have to look at it collectively and see how best we can rise above the fray. Because, like Joel, rightfully stated, for example, you would not have the deposit, the chances are very slim of a Cooper, taking the hands of a Dapo in marriage. But forming such a union with the Dennises, is something that would be, openly welcome, simply because the families will come together and keep, it's about keeping that, holding that, keeping things at a certain standard. Okay, so it becomes quite delicate, because are we doing it just for convenience? I see Pastor Adi is he's laughing, but it's true when you look at it, right? Certain sects could interact. And just like he said as well, I too was very, sheltered. Things were done a certain way, or had to have been done a certain way. So, but then when you go out there, you start to interact with other people, then the perception starts to change. So, all in all, I think we can rise above this as a people, and I will leave it at that.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, closing statement.
You keeping Randy for last?
Look, Randy, I'm not talking again.
you gonna?
I keep
gonna
hearing from
attack
last.
you. He's gonna attack you. But in closing, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Randy, for coming. Thank you for always being controversial. Why it is true, we disagree to agree, and we do all have difference of opinion based on our lifestyle. But you know that this is not a new phenomenon. Everywhere in the world, we do have the class system. We have it right here where we live, and some of these people is not even by choice. It's just how they were born and how their lifestyle has become. So what we all need to do is know that we are all one people and we can work together regardless of our differences and work on solutions on how we can make our younger ones understand that we come from different um, backgrounds. Like you just this story you just told. There are people that have that experience, and I think from just hearing your story made Joel to confess his shelter, how sheltered he was, and so we all have a different story. We just need to be respectful of each other. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for the evening, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And lastly, we have our man Randy, and Randy. For the record, just know that nobody hates you on this platform. You know that we like you. That's why we keep inviting you. And this platform belongs to Liberia, and Liberians, and it is for all of us. You know, everybody would not like the way I sound, the way you sound, the way the others sound. But at the end of the day, we would be heard because you know what, we are part of the fourth estate. So with that, I will give you the chance to give us your closing statement
I will
tonight.
interrupt him every time he says something. I interrupt him.
I
No,
would really love
before he
for
comes in.
Ah, you see,
Sorry.
you see
I
what I
will not interrupt him, man.
mean?
Yeah, let interrupt him. But before he comes in, I
Yeah.
just wanted to point out in today's Liberia, if you go, I don't know if it's because of the war, you don't have the way, even here, some of the intermarriages. The Roberts married to a Nangbe, or Nangbe married to a Cooper, Cooper married to a Dapo. That mindset is changing. Like I said, the leaders or wannabe leaders are that resurface the either the hurt, the pain, or whatever it is. So things are changing. We just need to talk about it more and caution those people who want to be leaders and try to divide us. Thank you, Randy.
Oh, you're welcome. So, as for everyone, what I would like to say, I mean, I am a very disagreeable person. And if I ever tell you that the CDC government has support, if I ever tell you that they are all aligned with me, then Joel, you need to watch my show. And I think, Reverend, I did have watched my show because there is not a time that I don't tell Joel where he's wrong. Even when he let the minister of telecommunication go, I said he was wrong because he must provide us reason, whether it was based on performance or it was based on party politics. So this new dispensation, I was not sheltered by anybody. I struggled. And the struggle I came through, I don't want to see other people going through that same struggle. So my position on social media and on any social platform is to be disagreeable with things that I know that affected me. And I think one of the ways that we can fight that one is to understand where we all went wrong and begin to reprocess that into our academic community. And then we out here who are out here having this conversation and build for us Liberia centric. The centricity of being a Liberian is to say this is wrong, whether it's come from the elite class or from the native class, this is wrong. Lastly, as far as using the Congo and the native in the political arena, it will not go away because they want to win. Democrats will always hold the good things. By the time election comes, they will say, oh, Republicans don't want to sign the bill. You all see the black vote and the police won't sign the bill for you to get this. So they play with these things. So those are things that I think will not go away easily. But through the education process, it will help to change things. So I want to say everyone should see me as a disagreeable person because in leadership, you might have disagreeable people and you might also have agreeable people and you must work together with both of them. Because the more who disagree, when you go out there to negotiate, that disagree person or disagreeable person can become a viable person when you guys are negotiating together out there. And that's the stand that I take on every platform. So I would like to say thank you, Ashford, for everything. I won't be a stranger here. I love challenges, and I work very hard on the challenges. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. The late Ronald Reagan said, I pay for the mark, I'm going to talk. Ashford got to invite me here, so I will talk. If Joel interrupt me, I will say. If Dr. Fred say, I will say. I will say.
I say, you know what? Next time we're taking our computer so you can Google. We want to Google.
Oh, then you know you can take. You can also take my. You got to take away my.
We're taking everything. Good talking to you, man.
Joel, I did my 8 miles today, man. You know, getting ready to go home and get some sleep and do that tomorrow again. You know,
okay, good.
It's a good feeling, man. You know,
8 miles.
Very good.
What is that? I would like to know. What is that? I'm curious to know.
I walk 8 miles every day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's about 17 to 18,000 steps.
Damn.
Yeah.
8 miles. Wow.
That is very good. Ashford, please allow Mr. Dapo to pray for us tonight.
Okay, Dapo, please do that.
All right. Let's close our eye and let's bow here and close our gracious Heavenly Father. I'd like to thank you so much for this week, God. Thank you for bringing us through to this Friday as we look forward to the weekend. Please guide us and protect us in everything we say and do. You are the only God that we look up to. And I also want to thank you for everyone who came on the platform today, including Dr. Fritz. We can disagree to agree, Father, but we pray that we will all focus on making Liberia a better place and bring her back here next time when Ashford Garley decided to bring her here. Reverend Adi, why did you put in Jesus' name here, man?
I said, but let you wait laughing for so.
Even in a man pray, making flower.
You disagree, you own prayer. Disagree.
Man, you gotta kind of check.
Disagree.
That video will go down here, so you coming to this.
That was good, that Pastor. You got him good.
We gotta get out there buying church.
He said, I will get the guy here.
All right, man. God bless you all. Love you guys.
Have a good night.
All right now.
You guys have a great night. And folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have to be with you. God willing, we'll be back on Monday with a fresh, brand new edition. Until then, please remember now, the wordings of the wise man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises, because there's no second chance to make that first impression. Don't see okra and swallow bone, because you can't hide your nakedness from beef in pocket. When God bless you, don't see that medicine. The tatted beginning of the microphone, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of Liberia. Wait, the akuya egwe play. Seko we a pelia. Basi yompro. Just sit to kwa yege. Zebo blow that and jako me chiraji. As for the giant, Africa's media do extraordinaire. That now you know me Galway. Have a good night.
Is that Martin Brown from the Florida States?